China just moved $8 trillion. Let that sink in for a moment. 8 trillion. That's more than the entire economy of Germany. More than Japan. It's more than the combined GDP of every single country in Africa. And they didn't do it with a big announcement. They didn't warn anyone. They moved it quietly through reserves, trade agreements, currency swaps, supply chains, and new financial infrastructure. And here's the part that almost no one understands. This move isn't defensive. It isn't just routine diversification. It's preparation, because this exact same maneuver has happened 3 times before in modern history. The same pattern, the same sequence, and the same outcome every single time. And each time, Western markets were completely blindsided, not by a war, not by an invasion, but by an economic collapse that was engineered well in advance. We are not at the beginning of this pattern. We're not even in the middle. We are deep into stage 3, the point where a collision becomes inevitable. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what China is doing, why the West is so dangerously unprepared, and why the next phase won't look like a typical recession. It will look like a controlled demolition. Across centuries, continents, and civilizations, major economic power transitions follow the same 4 stages, always in the same order, always with the same blindness from the dominant power, and always with the same result. Stage 1 is dependency. 2 powers become economically intertwined. Trade explodes. Supply chains merge. Each side convinces itself that this relationship is permanent and beneficial. Economists declare that a major war is now obsolete. Politicians celebrate cooperation. The markets reward this interdependence. Everyone gets richer, and everyone feels safe. But this stage creates a deep, hidden vulnerability. Stage 2 is asymmetric accumulation. This is where one side saves, builds, and quietly prepares for the future. The other side spends, borrows, and assumes the good times will last forever. Financial reserves grow on one side, while debt grows on the other. This shift is slow, it's quiet, and it's almost invisible to the public. By the time the imbalance becomes obvious, it's already irreversible. Stage 3 is strategic repositioning. The rising power starts to quietly prepare for separation. It builds alternative systems. It diversifies its reserves away from its rival's currency. It creates parallel infrastructure. All of this happens while maintaining the outward appearance of cooperation. This is the stage where an economic war is prepared without firing a single shot. This is where we are right now. And finally, stage 4, controlled demolition. The dependency created in stage 1 is now weaponized. Trade suddenly collapses. Currencies break. Markets freeze. The dominant power finds it, QAUNT, respond effectively because the very system it built is now being used against it. The collapse is economic, not military. And in many ways, that's worse because there's no clear counterattack. History doesn't just repeat itself, it rhymes. Let's look at the evidence. Consider Britain and Germany from 1900 to 1914. At the start of the 20th century, Britain ruled global finance. The pound sterling was the world's reserve currency. London was the center of the financial universe. Germany was the rising industrial power. Trade between them was massive. Economists at the time declared that a war between them was impossible because their economies were too connected. They were catastrophically wrong. Germany quietly reduced its exposure to the British pound, accumulated massive amounts of gold, and built alternative trade networks. By 1914, they had prepared the financial battlefield. When the war finally began, Britain didn't fall from bombs, nearly collapsed from bank runs, and a complete liquidity failure. The pound never recovered its former dominance. Stage 4 was complete. Now, let's fast forward to America and Japan. From 1950 to 1990, after World War II, America helped rebuild Japan. Trade flourished, and interdependence deepened. But then, Japan began accumulating US dollars, hundreds of billions of them. They converted that currency into American real estate, major companies, and other key assets. This wasn't just investment, it was leverage. In 1987, what many believe was coordinated selling by Japan triggered the largest one-day stock market crash in history. The U.S. system only survived because the Federal Reserve flooded the markets with emergency liquidity. Japan proved something critical that day. Economic warfare works. And you can be sure that China was watching very closely. More recently, look at Europe and Russia from 2000 to 2022. Europe tied its entire industrial future to cheap Russian energy. Leaders called it a partnership. Critics called it what it was, a dangerous dependency. All the while, Russia quietly built up its financial reserves, reduced its exposure to the US dollar, and created alternative payment systems. When sanctions hit in 2022, Russia didn't collapse. Europe did. Factories across the continent shut down. Energy prices exploded. Industrial output fell off a cliff fall, without a single missile hitting Berlin. Stage 4 was executed perfectly. And that brings us to today, China and the West. Stage 1, integration, happened from about 1990 to 2010. China became the world's factory. The West outsourced its manufacturing, its technology, and its supply chains. And just like in the other examples, everyone got rich. Stage 2, accumulation, took place from 2010 to 2020. China built up massive reserves, over $3 trillion. But more importantly, it built alternatives to the Western-led system. Things like the Belt and Road Initiative, a global infrastructure project, a rival development bank to the World Bank, yuan-based trade settlement for oil and other commodities, and a digital currency completely outside of Western control. They weren't just participating in the system anymore. They were building its replacement. And that brings us to stage 3, where we are right now. The $8 trillion shift. This is the move that almost everyone missed. In recent years, China has dramatically reduced its holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds. It has been aggressively increasing its gold reserves, month after month. It has signed dozens of new currency swap agreements with countries around the world, bypassing the dollar. It has expanded non-SWIFT payment systems to get around Western sanctions. It has stockpiled enormous amounts of energy, metals, and food. And here is the key signal. State-owned entities have reportedly been ordered to exit Western markets by 2026. That is the timeline. That's the signal. This is not diversification. This is separation. So, what does stage 4 look like? When China decides to trigger it, we can expect 3 things to happen almost simultaneously. First, a bond market shock. A large-scale sell-off of U.S. Treasury bonds would force the Federal Reserve into an impossible choice. Either raise interest rates dramatically and crash the entire economy, or print trillions of dollars to buy the debt and destroy the currency through hyperinflation. Second, supply chain disruption. Not a complete cutoff. That's too obvious. Instead, think strategic restrictions on key components. The result would be shortages, shipping delays, and massive price spikes on everyday goods. Third, the alternative system suddenly appears viable. Countries will be offered a choice: stick with the collapsing dollar system, or switch to yuan settlement and non-dollar trade to get the goods they need. It would be a choice between loyalty and survival. And that is how reserve currencies end. Not with a formal announcement, but with sheer necessity. There are 3 big lies that will financially destroy people in the coming years. Lie number 1. Interdependence prevents conflict. History shows us the exact opposite. Deep interdependence is what enables and invites economic warfare. Lie number 2. The dollar can't be replaced. Every reserve currency in history was considered irreplaceable, right up until the moment it was replaced. And lie number 3. America can respond in time. It takes years, even decades, to rebuild supply chains. Our massive national debt removes any flexibility to respond to a crisis. The leverage has already shifted. This video isn't meant to cause panic. It's about encouraging positioning. It's about understanding the timeline, reducing your personal dependency on a fragile system, and favoring resilience over chasing high yields. It's about diversifying your own currency risk. It's about preparing practically, not emotionally. Because in these major historical shifts, the people who lose everything are not the poorest. They are the ones who are comfortable, the ones who believed the system would always protect them. The pattern is clear. The preparation is visible. The timeline is becoming shorter. China's $8 trillion move isn't just a theory, it's a signal. And what you choose to do before stage 4 arrives will determine whether you survive it or whether you become collateral damage. History is speaking loudly. The only question is whether you're listening. Thanks for watching.